we've got an important fact check for you now. The presidential candidates have been attacking one another over their plans for the economy, especially over what Americans will be paying in taxes. Have a look at this ad from Vice President Kamala Harris.
The American people face a choice between two different paths for our economy. Donald Trump intends to take America backward while raising taxes on the middle class by almost $4,000 a year.
All right, what do these tax plans really mean for you? CNN's Matt Egan and Daniel Dale are here to sift through all of this. Matt, let me start with you. What are economists saying about these tax plans?
Well, Jim, both of these candidates have laid out a laundry list of promises, right? Everything from bringing jobs that were shipped overseas home to tackling the affordability crisis. But these proposals, they carry hefty price tags, and neither candidate has clearly laid out plans to fully pay for them. So that's why experts say that the national debt is likely to go sharply higher no matter who wins in November. Now, under the Harris economic plan, the national debt would go up by $3.5 trillion over a decade. That's according to an analysis from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Remember, Harris has called for extending some of the 2017 tax cuts. She's also called for expanding the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit. But look at that. Under the Trump agenda, the Trump proposals, the national debt would spike far more, by $7.5 trillion under his plans. The big cost, of course, is fully extending the Trump tax cuts. But Trump has also laid out other plans. He wants to impose no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, and a 15% tax on U.S. manufacturers. Trump has promised so many giveaways that both the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times have said that his economic policies look like they were crafted by Oprah, except instead of free cars, of course, he's offering tax breaks. Jim?
And Daniel, we also have a Trump ad on taxes. Let's watch that.
Kamala Harris is going to significantly raise taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up.
Kamala's plan will raise families' taxes by nearly $2,600 a year. Under Kamala, prices have already soared. Now she'd make it worse with even higher taxes.
All right, Daniel, what are the facts here?
Jim, this might be the single most deceptive campaign ad I've seen all cycle. In that short clip, we had two just horrifically edited quotes plus a made-up statistic. So the first quote, they cite the New York Times, and they say Harris is seeking to significantly raise taxes. Okay, let's go to the New York Times and see what that article actually says. What that article actually says is Harris is seeking to significantly raise taxes on the wealthiest Americans and large corporations. So those very important words edited out. Now, similarly, that clip features Harris herself saying taxes are going to have to go up. So, okay, let's go to that 2019 event where she said something like this. Listen to what the actual quote was.
And also looking at estate taxes are going to have to go up for the richest Americans.
So estate taxes are going to have to go up for the richest Americans, not taxes, a little different.
Some editing there, yeah.
A little bit of editing. And then the third thing, so they cite the Tax Foundation, which is a right-leaning but credible think tank, saying that her plan will raise taxes $2,600 for American families. I reached out to the Tax Foundation, senior economist and research director Erica York. She said, quote, I don't know where that number comes from. She added, that is not our estimate for Harris's tax proposals. So what it actually is an estimate of what would happen if all of the Trump tax cuts were allowed to expire. But first of all, that's not Harris's plan. We don't know exactly how she plans to handle those expirations or non-expirations. And second of all, as Matt laid out, she's laid out a whole bunch of other proposals. So again, this number is not a number that applies to Harris's plan in particular.
Yeah, fascinating. And Matt, Trump's big pitch is that he will impose new tariffs, massive new tariffs, especially on China, that will stimulate American manufacturing, pay for his tax cuts. He says, can you walk us through how this is all going to work, how these tariffs are going to work, and whether the claims from Trump really hold water?
Well, Jim, this is really important because tariffs might be Trump's favorite tool, right? I mean, he's called them the greatest thing ever invented. He's called himself the tariff man, and yet he repeatedly falsely describes how tariffs actually work, because he claims that China would pay the price of these tariffs and that billions of dollars would come pouring in. But that's just not how it works. Let me give you an example. Let's say there's a Chinese company that makes sneakers, and they're going to make those sneakers overseas, and then when those goods are shipped to the United States, they're going to face that 60% tariff that Trump has proposed. So instead of costing $100, this is going to cost $160. And so now the U.S. company, the U.S. sneaker company importing those goods, has to decide: are they going to eat the cost of those tariffs? And that might mean paying workers less. Maybe it means they're going to hire fewer workers, or they're going to pass along some or all of the costs to consumers in the form of higher prices. And study after study finds that Americans bore almost the entire cost of the Trump tariffs on China. And so that's why there's all these studies out there that find that the typical family is going to pay more under the Trump tariff plan. There's estimates out there between $1,350 and $3,900 a year in costs for the average middle class family. And remember, Trump has promised to make prices plunge. But again, economists, they don't agree with that. The Wall Street Journal just this week came out with a survey of economists, and it found that more than 2/3, 68% of the economists who were surveyed, they say that prices would rise faster under Trump than under Harris. Just 12% said that it would be under Harris. And one other point here is the whole point of the tariffs is to try to bring back jobs from overseas. But again, the survey from the Wall Street Journal, the economists say that they think that manufacturing employment in the U.S. would actually be lower under Trump's plans than without.
Yeah, we just don't know what the impact of these tariffs are going to be long term from a macroeconomic standpoint either. I mean, for the industry, that's important. And Daniel, Trump has made a lot of claims about tariffs and how they're going to impact Americans, but give us the facts here.
Yeah, so two big lies Trump tells over and over. First of all, he says they won't even affect Americans. China pays this. China paid us hundreds of billions of dollars. As Matt laid out, Americans pay these tariffs. The second thing he says is that no one before I was president had ever generated even 10 cents from tariffs on China. Aside from the fact that Americans pay the tariffs, the U.S. has had tariffs on China since the 1700s, and it averaged about $12 billion a year in those tariff revenues under Barack Obama.
He missed the part going back to the 1700s.
He did.
All right. Matt Egan, Daniel Dale, very important fact check, very important information for Americans who are worried about prices at the grocery store, prices at the car dealership, and so on. Really important stuff. Thanks, guys, so much. Really appreciate it.